Well, welcome back to the Awakening Potential Show. This is a space where ordinary softens and the extraordinary is allowed to emerge. I'm your host, Karen Rudolph, and in this show, we are inspiring others who carry a lot, learn a lot, and quietly know that there's more. And not just more to do, but more to remember. And here we talk about awakening, not as a concept, rather as a lived experience through real stories, embodied wisdom, and conversations that meet life where it actually is. This is where sassy confidence meets classy wisdom and badassy brilliance gets to be expressed without apology. So take a breath, let your shoulders drop, and give yourself permission to be fully here. And let's begin. Today, I'm really, really excited because I'm honored to share the space with someone who really reflects the journey and is the very heart of his work. And my guest, David Thierer, is owner and operator of Adventures in Florida. And not only that, he's my brother. Even though he's taller than I am, he's still my little brother. And I'm very proud of who he's become on this journey. So welcome, David.
Hello,
There.
everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm very honored to be here.
I am certainly honored to have you. I've seen you all my life go through this whole journey, and we've each had our ups and downs through it all. And
Yes.
here we are on the other side of it. I'd like to, well, it's never over. We know that. But on this side of it, and how far actually we both have come. But it's not about me, it's just about you. And I'm really honored to have you here today, David, because you have such a unique experience that I've witnessed throughout the years, and I always am baffled going, how does he do that? But before we start getting into that aspect of
Okay.
it, I really want to go back in time. I remember a time in life where our parents were giving you the cars and the Tonka trucks and all that, and I was getting the Barbie dolls, looking over my shoulder, going, I want to play over there. When you were, obviously that has trickled over. I always like to believe there, when we're playing with something in life, it's usually something that transfers over later in life. Tell us a little about your journey back and how it
Hmm.
started getting you. Don't give it all away because we want to get into the future later, but just a
Okay.
little bit.
Well, you had mentioned the cars earlier on. That carried over into real life. I seem to be collecting old cars now, so that,
Fix
that
it.
did ca that did carry over. But early on, I know one thing that started, and I think this is one of the things we had discussed other times that fascinated you was not. There were times where there were things I really wanted, didn't necessarily have the means to buy it, but I figured out ways to barter or trade. And that kind of went on throughout my life. Even, I mentioned with the cars, one of the cars I acquired was through a barter. So I always figured there has to be a way to do it if you really set your mind to it. And I know people talk about, well, you got to save up and do it. Well, I was a little impatient, so I tried to take the shortcut, but I learned a lot through the years. You were talking about early on, I was always the entrepreneur, giving my age away now. But during the gas crisis, I remember I decided I was going to sell donuts and coffee on the gas line to make some money. So I went to a restaurant supply and got the styrofoam cups. I went to Dunkin' Donuts and figured out how to do that. So that businesses had always fascinated me because I was like, there's ways to make money that's not always the traditional ways. So that's something I explored early on.
And I want to call that your superpower, David, because one of the things that I've always admired you for, even through the lean times, and we've all had our share of lean times, you've always persevered. You're a single dad, and you did an amazing job with my nephew,
Thank you. That's something I am proud of. So I,
as you should be. It took, I've seen you, sorry, it takes a lot as a single mom. I know what that was like. It takes a lot. And we inspire our children. I'd like to believe we inspire our children.
well, some of those skills did translate into, we were saying, the lean times because you do what you have to do for your kids. I was working, but there were times I had to get assistance. I remember there were times I worked, fortunately, food banks, whatever it took. And
Would
one
you?
thing I was proud of is he never wanted for anything and never went hungry. And there was always some way I would supplement. For a while, I was doing eBay. And One of the things I picked up as I got older was restoring things, obviously cars, and restored a little boat. So I'd like to restore things. So I would start learning that, oh, I could also be selling some of these parts I'm using on eBay. And that became a nice little side business for a while that helped supplement also. And I treated that very much like a business. And I would write a little personal note. If you have any concerns whatsoever, please let me know before you
Yeah.
leave any feedback. And
Yeah.
so I always try to keep that very business-like also. But again, it was a way to generate above and beyond.
I love that. So, what I really got from that and what I observed through us growing older together as well is that one thing built upon another. My book coming out, Spiraling Up, is all about everything that builds together. And you have been an amazing reflection of that. You take these experiences, and rather than victimizing yourself and saying, oh, poor me, you've taken it and really expanded it. And I remember seeing a TED Talk video called the Red Paperclip, I think it was, or
I think that was the one I told you about.
you tell
Yes.
me about that one. Explain
Yeah.
to the listening audience what that is, because you are the epitome of exactly that. And seeing where it's taken you over the years has just been mind-blowing for somebody like myself who's been observing
Yeah.
it. But let's not get to the end yet, but just,
Well, Red Paperclip was a TED Talk, and unfortunately, I forgot who showed it to me. But when I first saw it, I was like, that's me, pretty much. In a nutshell, it was somebody who started off and he had a paperclip. And he said, what can I do with the paperclip? I'm going to parlay this and barter, which is my thing. Barter up. Let me see where I can go with it.
right.
And throughout the course of a year, he bartered up. And I know you want me to give away too much of the end, but or should I reveal what happened at the end of the year?
Well,
Yeah.
not yet, but what
Okay.
happened at the end of the YouTube video, the TED Talk conversation, where this gentleman kept partnering up? What did he end up with at the end?
He had at one point ended up with a town, and I think he ended up with the house at the very end. So he started with a paperclip, and people think, oh, that'll never happen. But the problem is they won't try. If you say, oh, that'll never happen, you're already starting in the negative as opposed to, I'm going to give it a shot. Let me see. You never
Exactly.
know. My whole attitude I tell people in life is you don't know unless you try. And the worst they can say is no. So as long as you're polite and respectful, I open my mouth and ask. So would you take? When you do sales training, that's what they call it. Would you take this for that? Or how about we do this for that? And again, that was kind of ingrained in me early on. And it's just something I enjoy because it's almost like a challenge. Let's see if it will work. A lot of times I'd look on Marketplace and somebody would say, they were selling this, and it was like, oh, gee, I can't afford that right now. But they're willing to trade for this. Let me see if I can find that. And then maybe pull that in. And so it's sort of a few steps. But you'd be surprised. Just giving it a shot doesn't always work, but a lot of times you end up achieving what you're looking for. And it's kind of, I hate the cliche, thinking outside the box, but it's thinking all of alternative methods to reach your goals.
Exactly. You mentioned some really cool points, David.
Yeah.
One of them is not necessarily thinking outside of the box. However, I'm a big advocate of thinking outside the box and people realizing there is never a box. The box is what we create and keep ourselves contained in. If you look at a cereal package or a box of oatmeal or whatever, right? The directions are on the outside of the box, not on the inside. So I love personally thinking outside the box and
Well,
realizing that there is no container there. But
you made me think of something, not necessarily the box, but I know one thing we were talking about my son earlier. He and I got involved in the sport geocaching early
yeah,
on,
that's right.
which is, for those of you that don't know, you get GPS coordinates and you go out and look for things that people have hidden in plain sight. But one thing that was a life lesson I taught him was you can get to the area where it's hidden, and then I would say, change your perspective. You're looking at it this way. Maybe if you're looking at it that way, you'll see it, but it was a great life lesson because in a lot of situations, people have good times and bad times. During the bad times, you start to like my attitude or my MO is I would panic first and go, what do we do now? And then I would look at a different perspective and go, that could work. Or if that doesn't work, that might work, as opposed to just throwing my hands up. So
Exactly. I love that. And that's we're obviously from the same cloth because everything I do here is all about shifting perception. It's totally a good life lesson, a great life lesson actually. And you've instilled it on your son, which is just an incredible gift for him as well, because look how far he's come as well. And I'm just so grateful that he has had that opportunity as well. Not everybody does. And in particular, the way you've handled it is really looking at it from what can I build and what's possible in this situation, and everything just seems to be growing in your favor. It's like you have that Midas touch, so to speak, and it's
I
awesome.
I have friends that say that. I don't always feel that way, but they're like, "How do you find these deals?" And a lot of times I say, I open my mouth and ask.
That was the point I was going to bring up. They always say knock and the door will open. You don't ask, it's never going to open, right?
Yeah.
So great point. So what would you consider your superpower? I have my version of it, but what would you consider your superpower?
Oh, goodness, that's hard to say. I would probably say that I'm the eternal optimist. I'm always trying to keep positive and look at solutions. And I guess a lot of it growing up, I have to thank you because you had taught me about puzzles and looking for the solution. So there's always a solution if you look for it. A lot of times, like I was saying, people will do what I was doing is you panic first, but then you shut down as opposed to breathe. This is not fun, but we got to get through it. How do we get through it? There is a solution, or looking for support from people who can help you reach that. And again, sometimes with me, it was a barter. I needed something and I can give them services and trade or something to achieve that goal, and it usually was a win. So
I love that. And I love the fact you brought up puzzles because I don't remember if you remember as kids, but I never was into those manipulative, the flat puzzles. I was always into the manipulative, and grandpa,
three-dimensional,
that's
yeah,
right. So today, as a result of that, I'm doing creative problem solving for a living and travel globally doing that. And for me, it becomes fun because it's like, how do I solve this puzzle, this
yeah,
challenge that somebody's having? And what I'm hearing in that is you're doing the same thing in your realm. Like, you're
yeah.
creating value for others in the bartering or whatever you're doing with it.
The previous business, when I was starting off, a lot of it was somebody can help me maybe with marketing and I can give them service and trade, or a lot of it was just, hey, would you be interested? And put it
Yeah,
out there. And a lot of times people would say, sure, that's a great solution. They got what they needed, and I was able to get what I needed. And the people who were watching, I also have a background in marketing and public relations. So I think I had turned you on, Karen, to the book Guerrilla Marketing, which is an older book, but it basically talks about creative ways to achieve things on shoestring budgets or no budgets.
mhm,
So
yeah,
that's kind of how I started. It was as simple as trading links on a website. It doesn't cost you anything, but again, if you ask, a lot of times people will say, "Sure, it's a win. No cash exchanged."
exactly. So for the listening audience, if they wanted to, a lot of people are in this space today of, oh, I can't afford it, or the scarcity mindset, or the uncertainty of what's going on. What might you say to them, or what advice would you offer?
Well, I know it's tough for me because of my, again, being the eternal optimist. A lot of people get it in their minds, be it, oh, I've heard this over and over, this can't be done. And a lot of it is you have to have that innate trust in yourself because most people, they can achieve anything they want if they try. And again, if you don't know an answer, it's who would have that answer.
Exactly.
So reach out. You have your network of friends, your family. There's always somebody. And I was joking earlier about the cars. If I was selling a car, I would always tell everybody, "Hey, anybody needs a car? Oh, my cousin or my cousin's roommate." Or so it's like that networking. Answers are out there. It's just where you find them. It's not always on the internet. It's not always in the newspaper. So you really have to look at and put, and also I would say put things into stages because you're not going to accomplish everything all at once. To reach a goal, there's they say how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So I have to achieve this first to be able to do this, and that'll let me do this. So you have to breathe and just take it a step at a time. It's like climbing the staircase. Just one
Yeah.
step at a time.
Exactly. And you didn't have to break a hip to learn that one. Thank goodness. I keep referring back. I was just referring back to my broken hip accident where I remember saying when my only one foot, one toe would work. And I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't see. How am I going to do it? And it was like one little wiggle at a time. And eventually I'll get to the other side, which thank goodness I did. But it's all perspective, right? And all.
And the human mind is capable of so much that people aren't aware of. It's been proven in medicine where people are given placebos and they're told this will cure you, and it does. So if you
Exactly.
really believe in something and you really believe in yourself that you can accomplish it,
And
it'll happen.
hey, I'm living proof of that one. You know, I'm walking, talking, and dancing now. So I was
Yeah.
told my chances were slim to none after that accident. I am so grateful. But at any rate, absolutely. So I lost my thought. What, so your superpower is, well, forgive me,
Eternal optimism.
spiritual optimism. That really makes a difference, right?
It keeps you moving forward.
It does. So you've been down in the dumps. I mean, we've all had our lows and our highs. And what is it that you do or have done in the past that gets you out of that slump? I look at life like a roller coaster and I get green going downhill fast. You know, what have you done when you're going downhill and it's like, oh, here we go again? What is your secret sauce to getting up out of it, other
Um,
than a positive optimism?
Probably things, I don't want to necessarily say distractions, but positive things. I touched earlier, I like to restore things. And somebody had asked me why one time. And I
Yeah.
said, well, I look at it, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm,
So it's like I can start something and then I'm focused on that one task in the moment. And I could do that for, a few hours, whatever. And it's like now have something to look forward to because I've gotten this far. Now then I could go back and deal with whatever the other craziness is. But again, I can't stay immersed in that, or you have to get your creative juices going. And I think that focus on a project is something that helps me. And then it's always been what's led me to where I am today now is also getting out in nature. I was big into cycling. I just go off and ride, clear my head, go hiking, camping. Nature does that a lot for me. I like being by the water.
yeah, me too.
So
So, being by the water, why don't you tell everybody how you came to do what you're doing today? You know, David's background right now, for those who can't see it, those are that are listening to the auditory, is a beautiful sunset, or it could be a sunrise. So there's over a river, and
yeah.
it's one of my secret sauces to getting myself grounded is getting into nature. And I remember having a conversation about, gee, wouldn't it be fun in retirement? Da, 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 and here you are, boom, doing it. So why don't you share with the listening audience?
Okay.
And by the way, it's a beautiful picture as well. It's making me ache to be out there again, which we will do.
Well, this is actually the company's Facebook. So,
So
uh, well, again, it started early in life. I like being around the water. I remember going to summer camp and it was canoeing and sailing. If you remember, our uncle had a sailboat out on Long Island, and he took me
yeah,
for my first sail. So I was always fascinated with boats. We used to stay with our grandparents in the summer, and we were a couple blocks from the boatyard. I remember we'd go, they would let me sit in the boat. So I was always fascinated with that. And then we fast forward now a few years ago, I had picked up a canoe that I was going to restore, and a friend of mine loaned me his kayak. And I started using that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so much more fun and easier to transport, and started getting into kayaking. So this is now probably a good 20 years ago or so. And when you and I would get together, a lot of times we'd rent kayaks and go out on the water. And I remember every single time I said, this is an interesting business model, and you get people out, you can jump in and go. One of the other things I knocked off my bucket list a few years ago was going down to the dry Tortugas and camping at Fort Jefferson. And I was told there's a way to rent kayaks from a woman in Key West, rent the kayak from her. And again, I actually had a conversation. How did you get into this business? And so I think I was kind of on this path for a while and not realized it because unfortunately, or not necessarily unfortunately, but my life choice from my upbringing was you go to college, go to your corporate job, work your 9 to 5, get your benefits. So I had been doing that over the years and not really feeling comfortable in that environment as much. It was very rigid and restrictive. And I had learned from working for some big companies that you can get a phone call and the company's bought and you're laid off, and somebody else is controlling your future. So I recently had started looking at, I want to get back to being my own boss. And I had done that in the past, actually, when my son was first born. And that time I had a video production company because that actually was my background. So I learned about business and companies. But again, now we're here recently, and my last job, I had a corporate job, was making decent money, but again, not where I wanted to be. So I actually started looking at, well, maybe I can do something with the kayaking on the side. So I went on Marketplace and found some deals, and my pandemic project in the garage was I built a kayak trailer just for me and my friends. So that was already in place. And one of the women who I ended up buying some boats was getting out of the business. She was working with her son and he grew up and decided to do his thing. So I picked her brain a little bit. And then I had another friend, Greg, who owned adventures in Florida. So I remember giving him a call about, hey, thinking of doing this on the side. And he kind of gave me the reality or the dose of reality. There's a lot of competitors now. It's tough. It's this and that. And we got to talking, and at one point he said, "Well, I'm really wanting to do my week-long tours." He goes all around the world, and he said, "Why don't you take over my company?" I was like, "Let's talk." So we talked. It was probably for about a year, and in the midst of all this, as I said, the corporate job, they ran into mismanagement, and I was on the marketing team, and they let the marketing team be furloughed, which led to layoff. And I said to myself, well, I don't want to go into retirement yet. I don't want to go back to this situation where somebody else is controlling my future. So I said, I guess I'll speed up the discussions. So, make a long story short, this past September, I closed on the business, and Greg went off and he's doing his thing. But I keep joking because he's like the Dave Thomas of Wendy's. He's still the founder, and everybody knows him. I'm just like the new guy, but I'm just trying to keep with that same tradition he started with getting people back to nature, seeing animals in their natural environment, and not being like a people come here for those who don't know. I'm a little bit outside of Orlando, but we get a lot of people traveling coming down to see Disney, but then they want to do something that's more traditional Florida. And I tell people I'm not looking to nickel and dime people like the big theme parks. So
I love that. I just love the story because that's the ultimate red paper clip. You go from here and you end up trading up to not only that, but the farm is.
those of you that know, Greg owned a piece of property where the equipment was. He called it the farm, which I'm still keeping the name, just spelled differently. But he had been very generous through the whole process because basically he wanted to see his legacy live on. He didn't want it to be bought up by a corporate entity and become this dry, sterile. Because in talking, he had mentioned other people. David's going to do the kind of thing I was doing. He has that love for nature. And every time I see deer in the backyard, I'm still like a little kid. Oh.
Oh, me too, me
So
too.
to be able to give that to people, we have a lot of international travelers also, which is great. So they know nothing about the area and some of the wildlife here you don't see in other places.
Yeah.
So this time of year right now, it's the manatees and people. I know you and I used to go and we'd snorkel in Crystal River.
Christmas,
Christmas
yeah.
Day, we'd
Yes.
go. So again, I get to do that and it never gets old. And to see people's reactions and to read the reviews about how magical it was. That's the kind of experiences that I can now provide to people and share the kind of things I love and to carry on that tradition, which again, Greg started. So he was 30 years in and decided it was time to be semi-retired. And I can't quite say I'm semi-retired yet because I am, just taking over. But I joke with friends that this is the Floridian equivalent of renting surfboards on the beach. There's things I could be doing, but
Exactly.
I,
160 kayaks now or something like that on the farm.
the
Something.
between the canoes and kayaks, yeah, I believe there were probably somewhere about 150. Yeah.
I am just so enamored by what you've created there as a nature lover myself. I think it's amazing because you're actually living the dream. And so many people, they don't even know what their dream is, let alone coming from corporate. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? But when you build with all the set that you've had, I'm sure the marketing's coming in handy, the sales have coming in handy now, the cars and all of these things that you've learned throughout the years. And whether it had its ups or downs, you're now loving what you do to have this great outdoor adventure. And not only that, David, I'm so excited for what's coming next. You and I were talking last time I was there in Orlando, and we were talking about getting on. Your other passion is sailing and horseback
Yeah.
riding,
Hiking.
and you and I doing some retreaty kind of stuff. And it's never anything is possible, right? And it doesn't have to be in the whole be all. It's got to look a certain way. And I just think it's amazing. So,
Thing I 100% agree with is everything you've done, even from your childhood experiences, be it selling
yeah,
Girl Scout cookies and learning how to handle sales and money, everything comes into play. And I have to steal something that one of my former bosses had told me, which I absolutely love. He said, throughout the years, I've had a lot of mentors. Some were real mentors that really taught a lot. And
yeah,
I had always tried to pick their brains with bosses I've had. There was a boss I had when I was in my 20s, and he had a company that kept branching off, and they had different divisions, and none of them were related. And he had taught me the lesson of you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Some businesses were seasonal. So when this one was up, this one was down, and then this one went down, that one went up. So I'm trying to apply some of that now to this business because it's not seasonal per se. There are slow periods where it will slow down. So during those slow periods, I'm trying to find things to fill to keep my people busy, to keep the guests still giving them some other options. You mentioned I'm in talks with people for doing some equestrian ventures. I have somebody that I do sailing adventures, hiking, we have
love it.
incredible hiking and biking trails right here in the state forest. So that's right up the road. So I'm going to try to bring that to, again, people that are coming from out of state or out of the country.
Yeah.
I joke this is the old Florida before Disney, why people moved here. So
Yeah, absolutely. Florida does offer so much. I'm a Floridian, you're Floridian. We've been down here over 40 years now. So Florida is home and it does offer a fabulous lifestyle. And venturing is one of them. And I just really admire again that you have taken that on as the adventurer that you are. And it's exciting. I can't wait to see what's next.
it's exciting. I have to admit it's a little scary too, because I basically this is the retirement. I took what I would have used for retirement to put in, knowing I can take this and carry it across, the end zone and really make a great business, and then have something again I can semi-retire with. Because I'm
Yeah.
always going to be out doing something. I don't see myself ever just sitting around. Because, like I said, there was always a second business or going on. So I always have to be dabbling in something.
Absolutely. And I think also, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I also feel in a sense that when you're putting something on the line, it's almost like you're burning the ships. And it's like you're going to make it work,
Yeah,
right? So it takes the fear out of it. And the moment is like, oh my God, yes, I'm putting a lot
yeah,
of cash into it or a lot of time or a lot of energy into
yeah.
something.
Because I was joking for a while when in between the time I was laid off and I closed on the business, there was about 6 or 8 months where I was joking I was retired. I wasn't pulling a paycheck. I
Yeah.
had time on my hands, but I knew I still wanted to do something. And I also knew once I took over, I'm going to be jumping in full speed because I don't want to say it was on autopilot, but Greg was kind of preparing to move on to his next adventures. And I came in and I know he told one of the employees that I'm a visionary. He's like, David has some visions and plans where he's very happy to know that his legacy is going to live on. And I'm not just going to take it in a
Absolutely.
totally different direction because I loved what he had done with it earlier. And I'm going to try to get back to those roots. So,
And reading the reviews have been absolutely amazing. So not only are you thinking about doing it, you're doing it, which considering you're only doing it for a short period of time, people are loving it. And you've taken it to the next level because you're sprinkling some of David in there as well, not just Greg,
yeah.
but taking you in
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's a lot of it too, because when he started, he told me he had no mentors. He didn't go to school for it. He basically learned the school. School of Hard Knocks and made it happen. But the cool thing was for 8 or 9 years, he had no competition. And then all the imitators started popping up, which in a way is a compliment because they're like, he's doing something right. Ironically, they're all using derivatives of the name Adventures, but that's something I know we laugh about. But I had met one of the competitors early on, and I said, I've had businesses before. I believe in friendly competition. There's enough work to go around. They
Exactly.
have their own special thing they do. I have my own special thing. With my other production business, other than turn somebody away if I couldn't do that, I actually allied with a competitor. And I said, rather than turning somebody away, I'd rather say, hey, call them, and then vice versa if they were busy. So it was a
Exactly.
nice little friendly competitiveness, but I truly believe that everybody brings their own special, I don't want to say talent or personality into it. So even when we talk about the guides, one of my friends was joking and he boiled it down to, he goes, you're sitting in a boat going, there's an alligator, there's a turtle. And that's unfortunately what some of the guides do, but the people I'm looking for and I'm starting to build a team are people who have certifications for environmental or outdoor things. They know the plants, the flora, the fauna, the history of the area. So that's kind of the thing Greg started with is educating people. And you have to tune that to your audience. Obviously, some are interested in the animals, some are interested in the history, some want both.
Had someone cookies?
And Greg's cookies. Can't forget that. Yes, that was his secret weapon, homemade
I
cookies. And I joked once, I said,
love that.
yes, I know the secret recipe and no, I will not divulge it. So,
I love that. Well, being unique and different, there's nothing wrong with that. And I love it because I believe givers get. And when we give, we receive. And when you're giving to the capacity that you are, it's going to come back tenfold. I truly believe that.
yeah.
So
And in this particular business, it's about experiences. So I want people to have an incredible experience and tell everybody about it and show the pictures when they get home and have the relatives come down because they heard great things. And that's really how you build that reputation. I've talked to friends when I was in the marketing about you can say everything you want about yourself, but you have to deliver. You can advertise, oh, I'm the best at that, but you have to
exactly.
deliver. So that's where your rubber hits the road. So I'd like to
Exactly.
think with all of the past experiences, you're ready for this next adventure.
So I have a question for you, David, if you would. You've been on the water a long time now. What is your most favorite experience that you've had? One of those wow moments that just like,
You're talking about the business recently.
well, business or on the water adventuring.
Training. Well, I know obviously the first time you experienced something, first time I was out with friends and we saw the bioluminescence out at the coast. That was one of those moments where it flashed me back to the first time I went to the Grand Canyon. You want to take pictures or draw or try to share, and you can't really unless you're there. It's one of those things you can't duplicate. So that in my
I want to
paddling experience.
I want to just pause you button a second because for the listening audience who doesn't live in Florida, they might not know what bioluminescence is. And that took my breath away when I first saw it. And my little girl came out. It reminded me of Tinkerbell. But
Yeah.
explain what that
Well,
is.
for those that don't know, bioluminescence, there's organisms in the water, and forgive me because I knew the species, I can't remember it right now. But when the air temp and the water temp are appropriate, any movement in the water makes the water glow like a bluish purple, be it your paddle when you're stroking in the water, or you splash your hand, or even fish. You'll see the fish darting. So it happens in various places around the world, but not everywhere. So we're blessed here in Florida to have it out in the Indian River Lagoon area, which is Cocoa and Canaveral in that area.
Absolutely. The first time I saw it, I was paddling and we did a night paddle so you could see it really well. And my little girl was just giggling and it made me feel like yesterday in a sense because you put your hand in the water and as your hand is coming up, the water trickling down is just this magical
Yeah.
blue effervescence. And, oh my God, it's just an incredible experience. And I remember a dolphin jumping out of the water. And it was just a blue trail that was just absolutely fabulous. How does that make you feel when you're doing that? Because I can explain how it makes me feel, which is
Oh, it's one of the nature's wonders. But again, when I'm able to now share that with people that have never seen
Yeah.
that. So even though I've seen it multiple times, I joke it never gets old. And it's the same with the manatees when I bring people out and
Yeah.
we go by the springs and the manatee comes right up next to their boat and they're like, oh my God. The kids are, it's such a great feeling that you're the catalyst that's bringing that to them. And that's the thing I really enjoy about this business. This is not just about making money. Obviously, you have to pay your bills, but you have to have that passion. And that's something that Greg had, which you noticed, and I'm carrying over because I'm still like that little kid. Each time we do something and I see the guests experience it, it's just so cool. Cool.
Absolutely. What a
And the
joy.
animals. And growing up, turtles were always my thing. So I'm
Turtles.
always trying to spot turtles for people. And
Yeah.
on the farm here, we have some gopher tortoises. I just found a third burrow. So they're here. So I get to see them walking around every so often. So again, even in the new environment, the business took me to the new property where I'm living. And it got me out of Orlando City, and I'm very rural now, which one of my friends said, oh, your mental health is going to be so much better. And it's so true because, again, the wildlife just appearing, and I don't see any of the neighbors because it's so wooded.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's a different
So again,
way.
it's part of that overall part of the dream because I landed in a great location, great business.
Red paper clipped it.
Literally,
Easy.
it took me a while, but I got to end at that
I
in the
just think
rainbow.
I think it's awesome and it's admirable, and I'm still with my mouth open going, how does he do that? I ask for it, but I don't, it's not as easy for somebody like myself. Well, I say that, cancel that thought. It's not that it's not easy. I haven't delved into it the way you have. And I'm really getting when I open my mouth and ask, more times than none, people really want to contribute. And if I don't ask, I don't get. So
Well, I'm going to rewind a little bit back to what I said before, which people may have picked up on or not. But I actually called Greg for advice. That's how it started. Was I called for advice. I've known him over the years. I've seen him on and off. I remember coming up here looking to buy a kayak, but when I started, it opened up to, hey, maybe you should buy my business. And then we were talking, and again, he was very generous all along the way of telling me, we joked, he said, we're going to be married pretty much from this point on. I'm always a phone call away because he wants to see this succeed because he started it from nothing and built such a cool thing. So I feel the honor and also the obligation to carry that on because that's really what I want to do is he has repeat business customers that remember coming and oh, you're the new guy. Same kind of service I want them to have, same kind of experiences. So it was a blessing because again, it just sort of opened my mouth, just started asking for advice, and that led to the door opening and us discussing this. And now it gave him his venue to go do what he really wanted to do, freed him up a little bit from the daily, I don't want to say grind, because I know he did it for 30 years, but I think he was ready for the next adventures in his life. He actually just did the whole Florida Trail from the Panhandle down now that he's semi-retired. So it's opened up things he gets to do.
beautiful. Well, it doesn't sound like an obligation. It sounds like a beautiful choice that you're choosing to hold that legacy. And
I am,
yeah,
but in essence, it is a brand now. He made such a name out of it that I do want to carry it on, that honor to
it
keep
is.
that.
So for our listening audience, Dave, you had mentioned that you might have a gift for them.
Yes, for the people who are listening in, you can actually make your, if you decide to come and book a tour with us, you can make your bookings online. But if you would call me and mention that you were an audience member or a part of this podcast, I'd be happy to give you guys 10% off on your tour.
Nice. And all of David's contact information will be in the show notes. But if you want to give him your number or
And
something,
website is very easy. It's www.adventures, plural, in Florida, which is the name of the business. Or phone number, you could always reach me is 407-924-3375. And we're on pretty much most of the social medias, Facebook, Instagram.
and great pictures there.
Website would probably be the best to get all your information you need. And again, you can do the booking straight from there.
Perfect. Oh, David, it's been so amazing, and I'm so grateful that we were finally able to do this today. So before we leave, I always ask for a pearl of wisdom, some little nugget that you want to drop for the listeners. What would that be?
Well, I joke because I joke that it took me this long to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up. But the one thing that is happening now is I had heard growing up, you find something you really enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life again. It's not a job. So when I stumbled in, this pretty much was a dream. So I would say try to focus on what makes you happy, job aside, your family, obviously, but what keeps you going. And a lot of times it's a hobby, but start thinking about, can I do this? Can I do this full time? Now, I also caution people because a lot of times people will get into business thinking I get to do what I want to do all the time, but there is that business aspect. So you will be running a business. But again, if you can find something that you enjoy and it makes you happy, it's really not the drudgery of the 9 to 5 and worrying about layoffs and things like that. And there, like I said, there's always a way to find answers. So you have to be tenacious and just read or talk to people in the industry. Even here with me, I've run businesses, but not in this industry. And one of the first things I started doing was just networking. I met somebody that runs a business on the West Coast, and occasionally I call up and, hey, what are you finding? And things are down for us too. And he would give me good marketing tips or places to explore. So the answers they're there. It's like being a treasure hunter. You have to sift through the mud or dirt to get to find the gold, but it's there. So stay focused, believe in yourself, and go for the brass ring. Life's too short.
Absolutely. So if you're listening today and that landed for you, trust that it did for a reason, right? There's some gold, lots of gold nuggets here today, for sure. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy and haven't seen you in a while. Have to get over there for sure. Get to play and go out in nature. I crave it. So,
I joke with
um,
Karen. I said I could always find you a kayak. Come on over. We'll get out.
I used to live on the river and I think out of all the places I live, that's the one that I miss the most, for sure. David, thank you so much for honoring us, for your heart, your willingness to share your journey with us. Your story is such a powerful reminder that transformation doesn't happen all at once. It begins the moment we become aware, and it continues with a brave, bold, assy choices we make along the way. To everyone listening, remember this: the bridge from ordinary to extraordinary is built with small steps of change and big leaps of faith. You are more powerful than you. Keep showing up, keep rising, and keep awakening your potential. And if today's conversation stirred something inside of you, trust it, right? You don't have to rush it. Just listen, right? And if you're ready to explore your next step, whether it's sharing your story and stepping into the deeper work, you're welcome to reach out. DM me the word awaken or visit me at tranquilsolutions.com. And until next time, stay sassy, stay classy, and keep being your big, bold, assy self. David, thank you again. David Thierer. And again, all
Thank
his
you.
contact will be in the show notes. And make sure you reach out to him when you're in Orlando. All right. Bye for now.